On today's episode of the show, really excited to be joined by Tommy Denison. Coach Denison is the offensive coordinator at York University, and I'll give him a chance to introduce himself in a sec. But I can speak firsthand as someone who's been paying attention to the OUA, the last few years and seeing the job they did last year with the University of Toronto was really impressive. So, Coach, thanks for coming on the show and talking to us a little bit about RPOs. If you want to give the people kind of a brief history of where you've been and how you've gotten to York University. We'll get into it from there.
Yeah, thanks, Jackson. And it's great to be on the show. You've done a tremendous job providing an opportunity for coaches to learn from other coaches here in Canada and really see some of the different skills, opportunities, schemes that are being presented at the university level and different levels across the country. And I think the feedback I've heard about, what's going on and what I've seen has been fantastic from university coaches and high school coaches. So congratulations for this site. It's fantastic. Really happy to be able to present on behalf of York University today. And obviously, as the newest hire at York, as the offensive coordinator, as you said, really, really excited to be a part of the York family when Coach Craney brought me on. So much talent there that I'm excited to work with, and obviously taking this job inside of the pandemic when it first started. My first day was really as the university was shutting down. So I still haven't even been to my office yet. So looking forward to those opportunities as they present themselves, and knowing that this week obviously we got some information that was less than ideal. But we'll refocus and we'll find a way to get back on track, get back to learning, get back to working hard and committing. In terms of my path, it's been a long path and it's been, many stops because, I think there's, some coaches who start working for a university at a very young age and they're able to grow through the job and have different opportunities. I've myself been working full time in a different career. So the opportunity was to be a volunteer coach and to find opportunities along the way. So I've coached in almost every different phase of football in Canada, from high school to CJFL, summer league. I've played men's league where I've also been coaching at the same time, all the way up to when I took the St. Mary's job in 2017, where I was the quarterbacks coach, the associate head coach on offense, and by proxy, the offensive coordinator. We had a tremendous amount of success there, which provided me the opportunity to get back closer to home in Toronto and take a very similar type job last year where it was still volunteer based, where I was the quarterbacks coach and again by proxy the offensive coordinator, making all those decisions, building a program out offensively, obviously with the help of some tremendous offensive coaches. We had Irv Damon, Nate Hobbs, along and some more that provided a tremendous amount of opportunity for the kids. And that led me to the opportunity to be the offensive coordinator at York, and here we are. So excited to talk about RPOs today.
Yeah, I think it's something that, you hear the term RPO, and I know for a lot of coaches, it's almost become like a pet peeve because you can't watch an NFL game or college game without hearing it thrown around a ton. But I also think it's something that, I've kind of thought has moved slower into the Canadian game than I thought it might, just because of, the advantages I think it gives you on a big Canadian field and motion and things like that. So I think it's something that our viewership certainly can benefit from a ton. So I'll throw it over to you. I know you got a great presentation lined up, and we'll get talking about RPOs in the Canadian game.
All right, excellent. So just to start off, obviously the first slide here is just a little bit about me and where you can connect with me. I love talking to people about football. So if ever somebody wants to reach out about some of the material inside the presentation, you can hit me up on Twitter, on Instagram, or you can send me an email with whatever questions you may have. And those are the different places that you can find me. I'll put the slide back up right at the very end. It's the last slide as well as the first slide. So if you don't have a chance to get that information down now, you can get it later. So today we're going to be talking about attacking multiple field zones with RPOs. And I think people that have had a chance to spend some time around me in this game, they'll recognize that I talk about attacking with a numerical advantage a lot. And there's some different things that defenses can do that can provide some challenges for us. And one of those is to have players who actually play multiple field zones themselves on defense. So they may be a C-gap defender in the run game, but also a hook curl defender in the pass game. So we need to find ways to attack them that give us, I guess, a leg up again. We've heard so many coaches talk about whoever has the chalk last wins. We believe that philosophy. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that we never give the chalk back at the end of the play. That's one of the reasons we run no huddle. It gives us an opportunity to make decisions at the line of scrimmage. And we'll talk a little bit about that throughout the course of this presentation as well. So first, why RPOs? And what do they provide? So RPOs provide us an opportunity to ensure that we have a numeric advantage in the box. And we'll talk exactly on the next slide about why that's important and what the opportunity is when you're attacking with a numerical advantage in the box and without a numerical advantage in the box. We'll talk directly to that. The next thing is we want to create maximum space for yards after catch in the passing game. So if we're not getting that numerical advantage in the box, we're going to get more space in the passing game with an even numbers matchup to hopefully the field side or the boundary side where our receivers will be able to catch the ball and do something after it with the catch. We want to force apex players who have not declared to choose the field zone as quickly as possible. Obviously, we'd love for them to choose the field zone pre-snap. It makes life easy for everybody, who to block, when to block. But if we don't get them to decide before, we want to make them decide as quickly as to when the ball is snapped as possible. RPOs gives us that ability, and we'll talk directly to that. We want to put the decision-making in our players' hands. So this is, as we view it now at York, as a collaborative approach between coaches, obviously quarterbacks, and the remainder of the offense as well. And we want to put as many decisions in real time in our players' hands, and we want to give them the educational tools and empower them to do those things in real time. So when we factor all those together, we want to have a higher yards per play, and we believe that doing those things in conjunction will give us the ability to have a higher yards per play average. So we talk about why is numeric advantage so important? Well, first we have to understand what the landscape looks like in U Sport. For the most part, this is an OUA breakdown, but there's some teams from outside the conference as well. They're all U Sport teams that are in here. For those who obviously aren't here today, I've blacked out their numbers because I don't think it's fair to provide somebody's specific numbers without their consent, and they're not here. So what I have done is provided our specific numbers, and I've shown the numbers of where everybody else is, so you can get a bit of an idea of the different variation that you'll see across the province and the country. But overall, if you look at the bottom, as an average, teams are attacking the box 45% of all plays. So we recognize that almost half of all plays are box attacking plays. So we really want to make sure that we have an advantage. And you can see, at St. Mary's, we were able to attack box a whole lot more than we were at Toronto. And it really does come down for us as a decision that we made based on the personnel that we had. We had some tremendous personnel on the back end at Toronto that gave us some abilities to attack downfield. And maybe we're a little bit less developed at some of the positions up front. So we just made sure that we were maximizing our skill when we could. The next chart here really, I think, tells a huge story. So again, blacking out for which team is which. And not every game was broken down here. To break down 8 games the way that we do in Excel, basically it takes to do one side of the ball in a game. It takes us about 4 hours to do one game for one team. So to do an entire game with all the data and analysis that we're using and putting into a spreadsheet, it would take on both sides of the ball a full day, 8-hour day to break down. So you can imagine it's taken a lot of time. On average, there's 3 to 4 games per team in the spreadsheet at this point, and we're trying to build out all 8 games from last year. When you look at it, this is what happens when teams attack the box. So the blue is when they attack without a numerical advantage, and the red is when they attack the box with a numeric advantage. So you can see on the far right, the last column there is the conference average. So that's the OUA average. When teams attack with a competitive advantage, they average 8.4 yards per carry, and when they attack the box without a competitive advantage, they average 3.4 yards per carry. I want to be clear, though, that doesn't mean that you're going to get a 5-yard increase from where you're currently at, because those numbers are going to take into consideration both. So you're already attacking the box with a competitive advantage sometimes. So you'll find that the average team is averaging around 5 to 6 yards per carry, 5 on the low end, 6 on the absolute high end for a team. And I think last year 6.4 was the highest in the country in yards per play. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that our team is skewed higher to what's in red than obviously what's in blue. So the first thing when we read with RPOs, we have to identify, like, who do you read? Like, how do we establish who is going to be read? And for today's purposes, everything's going to be read with inside zone. Obviously, we can RPO with outside zone. You could do things with power, all those different things. For the arguments today that we make, we're going to be talking about inside zone. And I'm actually not going to spend a lot of time talking about inside zone. I know you've had some people on the show who have done a tremendous amount of work talking about inside zone. And I will defer to them as they talk about inside zone. For today's purposes and to keep things on time and on task, we're just going to talk about decision-making inside the RPO game. When we show the film, we'll make a few comments about the zone play that we're using. But for the most part, we're not going to dive deep into what the play is that we're running inside zone. So who do we read? So the first thing, if we're counting, so when we count the number of the running back, if the numbers are equal for both teams, you benefit from reading a box defender. So for instance, we're going to count our running back and potential H-back. We're not going to count the quarterback, although we do, when we break down our numbers, we count the quarterback when he's a ball carrier, when we use it for data and analysis and charting. If he's not, we never count the quarterback, because if he's not going to be a ball carrier, there's no value in counting him. If we're counting the running back, if we're +1, we're going to benefit from reading off of an apex player. And we'll show where these people are on the next form and the chart, as well as the video. But we're going to read an apex player. So somebody who's just outside of the box, the next nearest player to the box when we're +1. Okay. And then when we're -1 in the box, so if, for instance, they're in a position where they have one more than us, we're not going to run an RPO at all. We're not going to attack the box at all. We're going to find a way to run something completely different. For us, teams that have seen us play a lot will recognize we bomber a lot in these situations, or potentially throw a lot. But those are things that we've made specific decisions to. It's really hard to RPO, though, because there's two potential people that can come free. How do we decide which one? And ultimately, it's going to turn into pull throw. If they bring them both, we're going to get at least pressure to the point where we do get sacked, or make a really uncomfortable throw from us. So we're going to stay away from that. The route combinations that we'll use, for the most part, you'll see today, there might be one that you don't, but you're going to see all hitches from us. You're going to see a seam dig combination out of 2 receivers. You're going to see potentially a bubble screen or hitch screen, but we do love to run this. It puts a lot of stress. We'll talk a little bit about it as we go on, about the stress that it puts on defenses when they want to play high. And then we'll also run single receiver choice when we're attacking a single receiver. And we'll talk about a few of the different routes that you'll see us run. So how to RPO with a +1 advantage in a 2-back offense. So if you look at the top of the screen, we're going to RPO, we're going to read off of an apex player. There are 2 potential players that we can read. If you can see the image at the top, this is the first. So that would be the Sam linebacker. He could be playing a little bit at depth here, as you see, or he may be closer to, covered down over 3, playing at 5 or 6 yards, you may see, or the weak half. And, obviously he's playing high in this particular situation. Those are the 2 potential people that we can RPO. And we're worried about adding in or providing with us an opportunity to take a vertical shot. So select the apex player that you plan to attack. Those are the 2 potential apex players. The quarterback is going to confirm his alignment and then decision post-snap. So that's the person that he's making the decision off of. If they add into the box or step hard downhill, we'll be pulling off that. So you'll see our quarterback getting his head and eyes directly on that defender. We're going to provide route combinations that account for apex players, but ensuring that we're not worried about where those apex players are now. more concerned about where those apex players end up if they add in the box. So for instance, you won't see us, if we were reading off the boundary half, off this small image at the top, we wouldn't be running a dig into that look because we'd be worried about him adding into the box, and we'd be running a dig right back into coverage. And then we're going to keep the route combinations simple. There's a lot going on for quarterbacks right now in this look. The last thing we want to do is give them like what people would call progression reads, or read 1, 2 to 3. We're already asking his head and eyes to be on something post snap. We want to make him and give him the opportunity to get the ball out as quickly as possible after that and take advantage of the space that's already been developed for him. We have to recognize that when we're in this situation where we're attacking with a +1 advantage, there's going to be a very, very high probability that this turns into a give. So here's the first example. It's last year, as we talked about, I was at the University of Toronto, so today's film will all be the University of Toronto. This one's against Laurier, and it's in a +1 situation. So right now, we've just made the decision that we're going to be reading off the boundary half. So as you see here, this is the defender that we're going to be reading off of. We recognize that the likelihood of this defender adding into the box right now is very, very low, but we're still going to go through the process of reading him. We are advantaged in the box right now. If you look, we've got the 5 linemen. We've got an H-back. Okay, that's 6. So we've got a true 6-on-6. The tailback is our 7th. That gives us the +1 advantage. We have done a job now of accounting for every single player in the box. It's now up to the running back to make the decision off the 2 interior defensive tackles, to make a decision to get into the linebacking core where the O-linemen have hopefully climbed, and then we can get into the secondary by the linemen making their blocks, forcing either, obviously a free safety, a half, or a corner from the field side to track us down and make a tackle well into the secondary, or hopefully even break it for a 95-yard touchdown here. So as we play through it here, you can see, obviously, the snap wasn't advantageous. And I will say this, if we ever get into a position where we're unsure, whether that be created from a defense blurring a look, whether it be from somebody being in our vision and our view that we can't see through, or by a bad snap, we're going to give by default. We don't want to ever be in a position where we compound an error. So this allows for us, in this particular case, to give, but we did get our eyes on the boundary half, and we did make a decision. Obviously, this is very clear that the boundary half has continued to stay outside the box, giving us our 7-on-6 and allowing us to run the football. I can tell you that this week, we did not expect to get this look. In fact, we expected to get a lot of traditional defense from Laurier. What we got was a lot of +1 on every side of the ball outside the box. So we had to, and I could tell you that in our practice week, we didn't focus a lot. Well, we focused our inside run or our team run time on screen game, attacking the perimeters, thinking that, if we had even numbers in the box, we weren't going to win often. So when we came out in this situation in the game, we had to revert back to our DNA, things that weren't initially in the game plan, for us to go back to and attack with. And it served us very well as the game went on. I'll just go back really quickly because I want to make sure that the tight's shown as well. So as you can see, we're in a 7-on-6 environment here. Okay, we're 3 for 3 to the field side. We're 3 for 3 on the boundary side. We should be climbing. Our tackle does step down, even though we don't want him to step down that far, to the 1-tech. He does want to protect the B gap, but he goes a little far, which causes him some difficulty in climbing to 20. And then obviously our center does step the wrong way as well. We want him stepping to the field side and stepping to protect the A gap on the field side, but he does go boundary side. Things that could have come back to haunt us, but ultimately we did a good job of climbing and ending up where we were supposed to be anyways. But again, we end up with 12 yards in the run game, I think, or 10 or 11 or 12 yards in the run game on this play, because we attacked with a competitive advantage in the box. At Toronto, we'll go over the overall numbers at the end, but obviously we were able to put ourselves into a much better situation overall total in terms of yards per play in the run game than we were the year before. So the second play that we have attacking in a +1 environment, again, against Laurier from last year. Again, the situation is we get this weak half high again, okay? And again, we can either read the weak half who's high or the Sam linebacker who's high. This time we've chosen to read off the Sam linebacker. We feel as though he is a bigger threat. And at this time, we just feel like he may add in and it would give us an easy first down throw by throwing hitches in behind. Sorry about that. So on the snap, you'll see our quarterback's eyes on the tight go directly to the Sam linebacker. Right now, we've caught the ball. We're in a good position. We've got, again, 6-on-6 in the box. You can see the backers obviously giving ground in this particular case. Not as concerned with us. A lot of people thought we were just going to throw the ball on every down. So this gives us a tremendous opportunity to attack box. We'll be running hitches or a combination of hitches in behind it. Okay. Again, you can see everybody sinking. Our Sam has sunk. We now go to give. And you can see we're in a position right now. Now, we don't do a very good job of getting to the backers on this specific play through our inside zone, but still we're able to rumble for, I guess, close to 16 or 17 yards because there's really just nobody there to make a tackle. And when he does make contact, we've built so much momentum as a running back right here that it's really tough for the undersized linebackers who they've decided to use and play against us, in this case, to make a tackle. So you can see here, again, we should be 3-on-3 here. We do a good job of stepping to the double team here. We just didn't do a very good job of climbing. And we did put a lot of emphasis on controlling the line of scrimmage. Laurier had a tremendous defensive line that we knew were going to give us some very difficult problems that week. So we did spend a lot of time and energy focusing on winning at the line of scrimmage. We still didn't do a very good job of climbing second level here. That could have given us an advantage to get to 25. One of our linemen actually stepped the wrong way, unfortunately. So we didn't get to 25, and it took us a long time to get to 20. But we should have been in a really good position to get to each of these people. That said, because of the nature of what they're doing and trying to drop and get under defenders, they're not going to meet our running back until almost 8 yards downfield, which would be a tremendous run at the worst case scenario. But because, again, this scenario, we're able to run through a tackle and get an extra 4 or 5 yards after. So that's attacking with a +1 advantage in the box. The next RPO situation we look at is, okay, we've had some success attacking with a +1 advantage. What happens now when the numbers even up? Well, now we can't RPO an apex defender anymore because we can't block everybody in the box. The likelihood is going to turn to pass. We still want to identify one of the players. So we're now going to identify, as you can see, the circle players. Both of them are edge players inside the box. We're going to, obviously, there's also an opportunity to read defensive linemen. Like you could see traditional zone read. We don't run that very much. We find it difficult to read. Our abilities to do it successfully are far less than they are when we read backers, but you could. That would force quarterback movement. So for instance, if you're reading a defensive end, the quarterback's no longer going to be in the pocket. He's now going to be on the move in a boot type situation. Reading backer will create a true RPO though. So you'll be sitting in the pocket, ready to throw. Keeping your route combination simple again, there's a lot going on for the quarterback. So you can see that there's consistency here. There is going to be a high probability to pull in this situation. It's not guaranteed, but we know that for those players to leave and vacate the box and still defend pass is going to be difficult. So again, this is now still 2-back offense, and now we're into an even number situation where we're going to be RPOing a potential edge player. So we've chosen, and again, you'll notice as I go through, I'll start using a little bit more of the terminology we use. We don't actually call this the will, we'll call it 2 week, because we don't really know unless we're into the game week if that is the week half or the will. So we just describe him as 2 week over here. Because again, unless I was game planning for the specific week, we don't know if that's week half added in or week half rotated and will added in. So we're reading 2 week in this particular case. And now we've got a single receiver choice route on the one receiver side. Based on the leverage right now, the high probability will be that he calls hitch. And then what we want to do is account for the free safety. So on the backside of the route combination, we're going to attack the middle of the field. So if that free wants to get any ideas about adding in, we're attacking down the middle. So if it gets cloudy from the inside on the throw, so a free tries to rob, we go inside and replace him with the post for a touchdown. Okay, accounting for different things. We're not telling the quarterback to read number 2 week to free safety because we don't want to cloud his judgment. We just want him to read the will or number 2 week. And then if something provides a cloudiness, continue to follow your eyes that way and replace that with the throw. So here you can see we're going to be reading off the number 2 week. Quarterback's eyes are directly on him right now. He's clearly adding into the box. We're pulling and throwing hitch off of that. As you can see, it's timed up tremendously well. The ball's coming out as he's sitting into his break right now, creating maximum space away from here. We're not going to run a dig just in case they wanted to play a game where they brought the RPO key and tried to chase with a Mac backer underneath the route combination that we could potentially be reading. We're going to force them to run and cover and tackle in space. Quarterback gets the ball out. We're always going to turn to the sidelines right now if possible. Obviously, the corner was able to rally down and make a tackle before that was an option. But we got an easy first down throw there just for reading off a defender where we weren't probably going to have very much success running the football. So as much as people want to say that we were throwing the ball all over, here we are clearly trying to run the football, just not in an advantaged place to do it. There's a defender just out here that you can see Clay's eyes going directly to. You'll see him add into the picture here right now. And Clay's eyes are on him. He's just made the decision as he stepped down, and he's going to throw right in behind his head. So that's given us our advantage to the boundary where we've confirmed a true one-on-one, which is a win for us. The second situation, again against Laurier, and it just turns out that we ran a lot of two-back. I promise there'll be no more Laurier films after this one.
It's all good, man. People, all good.
Again, a similar situation where the week half or as rotated, you can see this time I can actually tell, but we're still going to read off 2 week. And you see he's come back now with our back, which is allowing us to get our back on an end, which allows us to get our lineman to the second level should this number 2 defender add out. Okay. He is right on the dividing line right now of what route to run. Pressed at 5. I'm not going to give away exactly what our rules are, but we have a conversion route where this can be a hitch or a fade based on depth. And it would be dependent on his ability as a receiver. Other options that you'll see us run will at times be post. Some of the rules I may not tip off just because obviously for competitive intelligence reasons, but I would encourage everybody to explore the different routes and what they think that they can do and give their receivers different opportunities at those times. So again, you're going to see the same thing. We're reading off number 2 week. If he adds in, we're throwing. You can see he's added in. Our quarterback has made the decision off of that. And we're now throwing a one-on-one again, this time against a lower corner. He's going to convert to go with absolutely no help. Once again, we're attacking the free safety with our number 3 receiver. So if a free goes hard over the top to make a play, we've created a one-on-one with leverage to the middle of the field. I think a lot of offensive coordinators would crave that. As the ball goes up, we're leaving. The ball's been, our receivers won, and now it's just an opportunity to go catch the ball. And it's not a jump ball. This isn't an opportunity ball. We've created space and opportunity for that receiver to go win, and we've hit him in stride. And obviously, we were able to get a touchdown in that situation. The tight of it will show the exact same thing. Obviously, you can see our guys had some fun with it. The tight of it will show the same thing. We're getting our eyes on 27 right away. You can see Clay's eyes immediately go to 27 to make the decision. As he adds in, he can, immediately get off. We don't have to read ride. We're not locked into this ride all the way downhill. As soon as we've made the decision, pull and throw. Get yourself into a throwing position as quickly as possible. As he does that, you can see he's ready to throw the football, and it goes up. A couple things that we could have done better is our receiver could have been a little tighter to the line of scrimmage. You can see he's too close to the sidelines. It makes the quarterback be almost perfect with the throw. If he had been a little closer and tighter to the line of scrimmage, knowing what he was running, he would have given himself a better opportunity to make a big play. Now we move to single back offense. I'm not going to spend as much time on the slides as I will on the film here because the rules are almost the same. So I'll just hit the rules each one more time. We're going to select an Apex player. Now the Apex player has changed, and we'll talk a little bit more about it on film. But there's going to be 2 potential Apex players that we're reading. The next thing is, again, we're still going to confirm post-snap the decision off the Apex player. Okay. We're going to provide route combinations that account for Apex players, but not where they're currently aligned, where they end up being. We're also still going to keep the route combination simple. You'll see hitches now. You'll see seam dig. And there's going to be a high probability of, in this particular case, give, because we have a +1 advantage to the box. It doesn't guarantee anything though, right? We still have to post-snap validate. So in this case, this is one of those cases where we're +1 pre-snap. Okay, we've got a 5-man with us with 6. So there's our 5. There's our 6th. There's the 4 down and a Mac. Sam is outside of the box. Will is outside of the box. So these are our 2 potential RPO reads. We've chosen the Sam right now. Okay, if Sam adds into the box, we're going to pull and throw off him because we don't have anybody to block him. If he blitzed, the running back would step up, pick him up, and we're going to abandon the fake altogether. Okay, and we're going to run, in this case, seam dig, reading off the half. So if the half passes off the seam, okay, we're going to run dig. We're going to throw seam, and if he runs with the seam, we're going to throw dig. It's a simple 2-on-1 fast break. In case the free safety gets any ideas of coming hard over the top, just like we did at a 31, 3 weak is going to attack the number 3, the free safety. So if we go to throw seam because the half passed him off and it gets cloudy from the inside, we'll have a wide open throw down the middle of the field for hopefully a big play. So as you see right now, Clay's going to be reading off 42 or 43. I can't quite read his number. The Sam linebacker. You can see his eyes immediately go to him right here. Clearly he's stepping up to defend run and try and take away the numbers in the box. So we're now off of that, and we're going to read off the number 2 defender strong, where we're running seam dig. He's passing it off. It's so important we run this with an inside release because, one, we want to turn the head and eyes of the number 2 defender away from the dig that's coming. We also want to keep the number 2 receiver away from the corner who could potentially collapse down hard over the top if it's hold coverage. As you see right now, Sam is added in, half is passed off. We're attacking with number 2. Free has not turned his hips. The quarterback should not feel that in the line of throw. We should be throwing to number 2 down the seam right now. Should the free safety had already opened his hips and run, you could see the position that we've put ourselves in with 3 right now, replacing where the free safety will be. So if the quarterback, he's just reading again. Read 1 on the snap. Here's your 2-on-1 read. As he goes to throw it, cloudy from the inside, go inside. Cloudy from the outside, we'd go outside, he'd stick his foot in the ground and fall off. It's not likely we're going to get cloudy from the outside ever because we released inside the number 2 defender. The ball's gone, we've taken our shot, we've hit it, and we're down the seam for 55 yards. Again, we wanted to run the ball in this particular situation. We had the 5-man box. We called a run play. 43 added in and took it away from us. You can see right now Clay's eyes immediately go on to 43. He's validated that he's taken the box away from us. We're in a really good situation right now to climb to 45. We're going to have a good run play if it wasn't for 43. Okay, but he adds in, giving us the ability to throw now. And you can see this is a really good opportunity to see what our quarterback sees, and that's nothing making it cloudy. He's just doing a straight drop. It's not in his throwing lane. But had he vacated, had he taken off already, you could see we've replaced, when he does finally go, we have replaced down the middle of the field, and we're in a position to make a big play that way as well.
What are your landmarks in terms of, so for that guy who's replacing the free safety, is he literally running to where the free safety is, or is it a spot on the field that you want?
Yeah, so he wants to attack between the near hash and where the free safety vacates from. He
Gotcha.
Still has to worry about, in that particular case, you could see it was the boundary half, who was high as well. So we want to make sure that we're far enough away that he can't get into the throwing lane as well. So it would be about 3 to 5 yards inside the hash, taking into consideration where the free safety was and left from. Like, it has to make sense. There's a visual cue to it, but 3 to 5 yards is away from the the hash mark as a minimum.
Awesome.
The next one, we're in the same situation again against Carleton. Okay, we have an opportunity here to read 2 defenders. In this case, it's going to be one of the 2 high defenders here. So our 2 apex players that we could potentially defend would be 3 weak or 3 strong. If he adds in, okay, we've decided to attack this defender. If he adds in, we would be throwing 2-on-2 to the field again. If he stays, we're going to hand the ball off. So you'll see Clay's head and eyes go to whatever number he is. We'll get a better look on the tight. So you can see, as much as he's looking in, we're not just looking to see where he's looking, we're looking to see what he's doing, right? So our head and eyes go there, and he is nowhere near the box, even though he's staring into the box. So at this stage, Clay should make the decision to give the football. And he does. So now you can see our O-line, who's had some difficulty throughout the course of the season in disadvantage situations, attacking with an advantage situation, getting the ball through the line of scrimmage. We didn't climb to the backer the way that we would have liked to. But again, we're going to get at least, it looks like, 6-7 yards on the run. Plus some. So we end up with an 8 or 9 yard run here. Simply because, again, we're attacking with a competitive advantage. They weren't able to add in that Sam or that number 3 defender. So we were able to run the football. The tight will show you the same story. Obviously, we don't do a very good job of climbing to 29. What we do is a really good job of, though, is reading that extra defender who didn't add in and would have made it a really difficult throw for us. Again, though, 29 did a job where he continued to drop as well, which allowed for us to get so much mileage in the on the run play. So now we get an even numbers situation. So now you can see how do we attack an RPO with equal numbers. So now what we're going to do, just like we did with a 2-back set, we're now going to attack the 2 edge defenders inside the box when it's even numbers. Okay, so here you can see just circled in a small image, but we'll show it as we get a little bit more visually. And I'll go through these rules quickly because they're the same. Identify the player in the box you want to read. Reading the lineman will force quarterback movement. So if we read the edge, we'd end up running zone read and our quarterback would be booting. Again, we're going to read, in this case, edge players, but not low players. So we're going to be reading true RPOs. We're going to keep the route combination simple. So I think on both of these examples, we just run hitches on both sides. And again, we expect a high probability of pull, but just like the last one where it was a high probability of give, there's no guarantees. So the first example is against Waterloo. Again, we've got a situation where we've got a 6-man box. So our 2 potential defenders are 1 low inside the box here, but this is the one that we're going to read. So we'll call this 3 weak or the Will linebacker, whatever you want to call him. Could be the Sam rotated over. Obviously, we expect that there's a high probability we're going to be pulling and throwing, but there's no guarantee. We're still going to go through the exercise of reading him. And you can see on the first step, he immediately bucket steps and tries to get out of there. We've run this play 3 times in a row, I think, at this point. So, and we've pulled and thrown in every example. So now he's sinking, saying, I've seen this show before. I'm going to show you. I'm going to take away the throw. And our quarterback's got his head and eyes on him right now, making a decision to hand the football off. Again, we could have done a better job attacking second level with backers in this particular case. But this is a first, there were some injury situations with this group of linemen, and there are a young group of linemen at the same time finding their way. They do a nice job here of getting 7 yards. I think a lot of teams would really like 7 yards on 1st and 10 when attacking the box.
Absolutely.
So the tight of it's going to show the same story. Our quarterback reading, in this case, 38. Okay, obviously the expectation being likelihood that it's going to be pull and throw, but he's getting his eyes on him. If 38 had blitzed, 20 would step up immediately. We would abandon the fake and throw. You can see 38 turns and sinks. Clay's eyes are directly on him. He's made the decision to give right now. We're in a tremendous position here. Here's your 2-on-1. There's our base. We're working second level and we're basing here. We should be winning in all situations. Obviously, we get our 7 yards. We've made a good decision at the quarterback position. The second play that we've got here, okay, it's a very similar situation. We've got a 6-man box again, so our 2 options are right here or right here. Okay, we've chosen to read the number 3 defender again weak. As you can see, it's creating a real bind on this defense, who's for some reason rotated their Sam a little too far. Okay, if he had rotated their Sam in, kicked the Will out of the box, we probably would have read the Sam and gone field. But in this particular case, it's clear that if Will or number 3 weak stays in the box, we've got a true 3-on-2 for a high probability of a massive play. So we're going to read off 3 weak. If he steps down hard against run, okay, we're going to pull and throw. And if he sinks, we're going to hand the ball off. I will say there are a couple different things that we read. So any movement downhill, we pull. Any non-movement, we pull. And any movement to the inside, we pull.
It's tough too when you're in that no huddle. You know, the defense is just trying to get aligned, and now you're able to stress them in so many ways. I think that no huddle piece is critical there as well.
Absolutely, Jackson. It creates so much stress, and for the most part, I want to tip my hat to Waterloo in this game. Coming into a game where they didn't have very much film on what we were going to be doing and putting themselves in an advantageous position defensively to force us to make decisions. We had gone into a situation where we had run a combination of this and an over-under concept that they were at this point overcompensating for. And I think, again, they were trying to put their kids in a position to stop something else, which gave us the ability to take advantage of this. So here we are. We obviously pull because the running back, and I'll play that again, the linebacker steps down, the number 3 defender. As he steps down, our quarterback's eyes are on him, and he immediately throws. We're now in a position where we've got 3-on-2. Our 2 is going to peel inside. Our 1's going to peel back, and we should be able to pick up, a big play, hopefully a touchdown. And as you see, we do score a touchdown on this. Our wideout, Will Corby is a tremendous player. Very heads-up play here. He returns his back at the last second to make sure that he doesn't get called for a crackback block, right? So many things that go into playing it. Smart players who are disciplined, do their job, get you to the end zone. As coaches, all we want to do is get a ball to our players in space to allow them for their abilities to get to the end zone. So 38's our read in this case. We're going to read off him. Any step, every move, let me go back to that. Any movement downhill, any movement inside, or any static control, we're going to pull off of. So you can see he clearly stepped downhill. We'll show it one more time. There he is stepping down on the quarterback's decision. 6 is looking right at 38. It's clear as it can be. Okay, we're base here. We're working second level, and we've got 3 one-on-one blocks here. We're reading off the nose. Had we run, we would have gone, a strong. But obviously, this would have squeezed our run lane. Because of that, we're pulling and throwing. Again, another example of us trying to run the football, but being given something completely different. And you can see again as he does a great job of being a great player and springing his teammate to the end zone. So to summarize, why RPOs? Again, we want to ensure that we have a numeric advantage to the box at all times. It's the most important thing that we can have when we're running. As you saw for our receivers, when they do add in, we're creating maximum space for yards after catch in the passing game. We're going to really force those apex players to declare which way they're defending. If they're giving us a +1 situation, we're going to make them declare high or come into the box quickly. And the most important, I think, anyways, is empowering our players, giving them that decision-making to always put us in the best situation possible. Again, when we say we want to be the ones holding the chalk last, I guess I'll build an addendum on that. It's not that we want to be it as coaches. We want our players to be an extension of us holding that chalk last. And this is going to equal a higher yards per play average for our team, not just in the run game, obviously as we're talking about this in the run game, but overall in yards per play. So what are our results been as a team? So obviously 2 places now that I've been, St. Mary's and obviously the University of Toronto. So the first was St. Mary's before we ran this ideology of numbers and leverage to attack. They were averaging 5.2 yards per carry. The following year, we were able to average 6.2 yards per carry, going from 17th in the country to 4th in the country. Jackson, if I told you that, what you've known a little bit about what we did at Toronto, I'm not sure if you know much about what we did at St. Mary's. If I told you that we were in the top 5 in yards per carry in the country, I think a lot of people would be like, really? That doesn't sound right, but it's true. And then obviously at the University of Toronto, the year before we got there, they were at 4.5 yards per carry. Again, add in the ideology of attacking with a competitive advantage at all times. Our yards per carry in the rush game, 6 yards per carry, up from 23rd in the country to 7th, almost cracking the top 5. So again, only 0.2 yards shorter than we were at St. Mary's. So an increase of 133% or an increase of 119% at St. Mary's. So that's it for my presentation. Any questions that you have, Jackson? Again, I promised that I'd put this slide presentation up at the end. Anybody that wants to catch Twitter, Instagram, send me an email. Happy to connect, especially in this time. I know there's an opportunity for development for a lot of coaches, and I want to do my part to help anybody who's looking for any explanation above and beyond what I was able to give today.
I think, and again, as someone who's been a bit more of a believer, I think that RPOs would move faster into the Canadian game. I haven't seen as many people are starting to run them now, and I guess a lot of people the zone read RPO as, I guess, kind of an RPO, like you said, you guys don't do it a ton, but the kind of downfield throws, I think is something that's unique. And we obviously looked at attacking out of different formations and different number relationships. I think is really important. To you, and you did a great job explaining why the RPOs. Do you run those pass concepts as well, just in your base passing game, or are those kind of exclusively married to your RPO game? I'm just thinking as a high school coach who's trying to maybe put some of this in. How much does that overlap with your passing game as well to allow you to cover more in a shorter period of time?
Yeah, so hitches is absolutely a staple of what we do in passing game. You'll see us running hitches all the time. I think if you revisit the Queens game last year, I think we called hitches something like 41 out of 63 plays or something along those lines. It was a very large percentage of what we ran. So hitches would be an absolute staple. The others would be more along the lines of RPO. But I will say this, Jackson, we run RPO a lot more than I think people realize that we're doing. Like, we even ran RPO last year with Q draw tied in a lot. And I think, when you're running one-on-one stuff, we have to do something to hold those players to ensure that we get to maintain that one-on-one advantage. So you'll notice we do RPO a lot there. If we were to just do a traditional drop back and pass, though, the route combinations that we would run there, you would see would be like smash, so the corner hitch concept, like an over-under concept would be something we'd run away from using RPOs with. And then maybe a flood concept would be, some of the traditional concepts that we would use away from RPOs that we feel give our quarterback a really nice opportunity to create a 2-on-1 bind on a defender.
Yeah, and it's so meaningful, I think, when you can keep things simple for your players. And I think a lot of people get concerned with RPOs, but it's complicated, it's challenging, it's something that my quarterback might have a hard time with. But I think the way you've displayed it there, really, it's no different than asking your quarterback. It's probably easier in a lot of situations than asking your quarterback to make that traditional triangle read or 3-level read. You're still asking them to make 1, 2, maybe at most 3 decisions. It's just one of those is the run phase of the play. I think that's a super important thing for people to keep in mind when they're considering, hey, is this something I want to go do, or work into our system? I mean, to me, and I'd be interested to hear your take on this, I don't think that's any more difficult than the traditional passing read that we've seen for years.
Yeah, so I agree with you 100%, Jackson. And I would say that sometimes we fall into a trap where we think that because it's easier to explain and leave more variables on the table in a 3-level read or a triangle read, we can use the term triangle and say that that's enough. The quarterback, though, who actually has to go out and execute that, is feeling probably a lot of pressure, not as much information as they like to have in terms of understanding it. And so it's going to be very difficult for them to understand how to execute it effectively. We really need, as coaches, I think, to fully understand and be able to teach the concepts for which we're passing on to our players. so that it may be more difficult for us to teach, but we're taking the anxiety, the pressure off those players, giving them a solid set of rules and asking them to make easy decisions. And we're taking the onus of the responsibility on the explanation, on the teaching as teachers to do that. And again, as you said, it may feel daunting sometimes to understand RPO game. When you dig in, I don't want to say anything isn't that difficult, but when you dig in, it's logical. And as you work through it, no different than a quadratic equation. I know a lot of people teach those as the high school teachers that may be watching, or some of the history information, geography, science, whatever it is you teach, I can assure you is more difficult than RPO and understanding the numbers that are associated with that. So if you really dig in and use some of the different aids specifically on this YouTube channel, you're going to have an opportunity to continue to grow as a coach.
Yeah, awesome. And, I really appreciate you being so open with your stuff and having that presentation ready for us. So, hopefully we're all, obviously, we've got the news. We won't be out there next season, but, I guess, and we've got a new offensive coordinator at Laurier as well. So I kind of have some insight into what I'm sure that's like for you, watching Coach Galloway try and get things going here. And I mean, the one silver lining, I guess, for all the people who are, whether they're getting into a new gig or maybe you're changing your offense or whatever it is, at the very least, if we don't have any football this fall like we do in the OUA, we have more time to better ourselves and teach our kids before we get back out there. So hopefully, we're all systems go as soon as possible. And, thanks for making the time.
Thanks for having me on, Jackson. It was a lot of fun to be here today.